The first 15 words of our Constitution are, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union."
Some sound there from the third night of the Democratic National Convention. In the year of COVID-19, this key piece of Campaign 2020 theater is as non-traditional as the current U.S. political landscape. But just because it's virtual doesn't reduce its real purpose. Tonight, that's to introduce to the country the party's historic choice for vice president and to whip up support for the Biden-Harris ticket. And so to talk about how that's going so far, I am joined by David Frum, a senior editor at The Atlantic. Nadia E. Brown is a political scientist, an associate professor at Purdue University, and Howard Dean is a former head of the DNC, former governor of Vermont, and was a candidate for the Democratic nomination in 2004. And therefore, Governor, we need to start with you. No one knows this moment better than you. How do you think the Democrats will end up measuring success from a convention, well, let's just call it unique?
Well, there's only one way to measure success, and that's if we win in November or not. And everything in politics and medicine, my two disciplines, are seen through what we call the retrospectoscope, which is unforgiving. But I do think that conventions will look a lot more like this in the future, no matter what happens. COVID has simply accelerated some changes that were going to happen in any case, and I think there's going to be a lot more of this in the future.
Nadia, what do you think the Democrats absolutely have to do this week?
Sure. Democrats really need to start to lay the road to unify the party. So really bringing back progressives who are not as enthusiastic about Biden as a candidate, but are more pragmatic about getting Trump out of the White House. And then bringing in some of the never-Trumpers, right? Folks that do not think that the country is in the right place or going in the right direction. So the Democratic Party really needs to pitch this big tent and invite all the people back together and figure out what to do once Biden is elected and try to lay out this ground game this week.
Okay, so far in this convention, most of the speeches, have represented a bit of a piling on of insults and criticisms of Trump. Is there a chance, David, that the Democrats are just going to insult voters who once voted for Trump, who may be hesitating this time around, the voters the Democrats want?
I don't think this election is going to be decided in the middle. I think this election is going to be decided by activation. People know what they think of Donald Trump. He is the most opinion-driving president probably in our lifetimes. So the people who like him, they're not going to change their minds. The people who don't, and they won't change their minds. The question is, do people feel that their voting can make a difference? Can they be activated? One more thing, I think both Nadia and the governor made this point, it's very important. What you're watching here is the first convention of the Facebook era. Conventions used to be the last thing that was macro-targeted. Everybody saw the same show from whenever it started at 8 o'clock till 11 o'clock, whenever it quit. What the Democrats are doing is making a series of YouTube videos that can be algorithmically plugged into different people's feeds. So progressives who want to be reassured about that will be seeing a very different Democratic convention over the next couple of months than Trump Republicans who are reluctant, and then mainstream Democrats each will see different snippets, different elements of something that for the first time is being micro-targeted instead of macro-targeted.
Okay, well, let's talk about those different elements. Nadia, there's this talk of this tussle between the progressive left and the centrist views. Will it ultimately matter, do you think, what Biden's plans are, or is the only policy that matters right now that he is not Donald Trump?
No, policies matter. Policies matter really big for millennials and Gen Z. Mm-hmm. This is a group of people who want to do more than just show up to vote someone out of office, which they are motivated by, but they want to know who they're voting for and why. And we've seen much more engagement and kind of a pushback of symbolic politics in an effort to talk more about the substance of how actual politicians are planning to deal with the issues. And so tonight we've already seen Gen Z's and millennials issues right up front. Right, leading off tonight was a discussion around senseless gun violence, and Gen Z's really leading the discussion here, and what Biden will do to try to cut down on some of these senseless laws that have enabled millions of Americans, particularly Black and brown communities, to be killed at gun violence. So, yeah, it's not just having a Black woman multi-ethnic Black woman as a VP, but it's also what are the substance that these candidates bring to the table.
I think one of the things that's been noticeable at this convention is seeing a lot of big-name Republicans, John Kasich, Cindy McCain, Colin Powell. Governor, what's the thinking there? What are the chances that those people appearing will pull people across?
They aren't going to pull people. What they're doing is giving permission for Republicans who are very uncomfortable with Trump, the so-called never-Trumpers. There are a group of people, and David certainly knows more about this than I do as a conservative, but there are a lot of people who really think Trump is dishonest, which he is, and who's doing America a disservice and frankly doing the cause of conservatism a disservice. And by having people like Cindy McCain and Colin Powell and John Kasich, who's a genuine conservative, talking at the Democratic convention, it gives people Republicans who don't want to vote for Trump permission to vote for this Democrat. And it's very, very important to us. This is going to be a 1 or 2% election in a lot of important states, and that could give us the margin.
So, I'm not sure that there's a lot to see or motivate at a virtual convention unless you're a political junkie. I mean, it's likely not high impact viewing. So, Nadia, to start with you, and then we'll go to David. What does that say to you about the campaigns to come?
Sure. Well, I think that, again, this is the new era, right? We will see more campaigns and conventions look like this, particularly for digital natives, millennials, and Gen Zs, who are not going to be tuning in to the traditional format. But, right, the people that are tuning in are not, these are people that are mostly partisans, people that are political science nerds, are really into policy. It's not your average citizen. Your average citizen will be catching this on the nightly news or in their curated news feed based on their demographics. So this convention, it will really play out differently for different people because the segments will be targeted for people based on their demographics and the likelihood that people turn out to vote.
David?
I think the Democrats have backed into, I think this is a very high impact convention, but in a completely new way. And the Democrats didn't do this on purpose. COVID drove it. But over the coming weeks, what's going to happen is if you are a minority woman who wonders, is my vote effective? You're going to see snippets of that Michelle Obama speech showing up in your feed. If you are a Midwestern conservative who's unhappy with Trump, and Facebook knows that, you're going to be seeing bits of John Kasich. And all of these things are going to be chopped into pieces and shown again and again and again. And that's why this really is the future. I think the days of people starting their viewing at 8 p.m. and watching all the way through to the last balloon drop, that probably is never coming back. But the ability to create specific videos for specific audiences, knowing who wants what, that's going to be very, very powerful. And I think, as I say, it's an accident. No one planned this, but I think they've discovered something, and it's going to be the future.
By the way, David, people continue to worry about the integrity of the mail-in ballot systems in the United States. How much of a concern do you think that should be to either party?
I think this is going to be unprecedentedly for the past 100 years, an election in which people do have to worry about the security of the voting system. In 19th century America, there was a lot of vote rigging, a lot of ballot stuffing, a lot of cheating. That began to go out of style in the 20th century, and now it is back and with a vengeance. It's something really to worry about.
All right, last question to each of you very briefly. We'll start with you, Nadia. What are you looking to see from Joe Biden tomorrow?
I'm looking to see how it's going to roll out his policy preferences and how it's going to try to unite the party.
Okay, that was pretty quick. David?
I'm going to see whether he can. Joe Biden is a creature of the Senate. He's always been a creature of hand-to-hand, handshaking politics, glad to see a big hug. Can he project himself through the camera and make that connection that is so essential to his politics with hundreds of millions of people? And that's going to be a question for him tomorrow night.
All right, last word to you, Governor.
Two things. He has to project what he's really selling, which is decency. I think people are tired of the corruption, tired of the narcissism, and they'd like some competence. Those are the three things. That's the meta message of Joe Biden's campaign. And I do think Nadia made an incredibly good point. One of our three core constituencies are women, people of color, and people under 35. people under 35 don't have party loyalty. They have issues loyalty, and he has to talk about the things that he needs to talk about. And the alliance between him and Bernie Sanders is really significant. We have not seen that before. And it's very, very important because he's got to speak directly about what he's going to do about climate change, particularly diversity. Those are things that the younger generation cares a great deal about, and they will vote for Democrats as long as we're there because the Republicans aren't. But if we stray from that, then it's just another candidate, and we're going to lose them, and we can't lose them because we can't beat Trump if we do.
All right, Governor, thanks very much. Thank you to Nadia Brown, David Frum, Governor Dean.